Hello, hi, yes, this is actually my voice. Pretty childish, right? So yeah, this is like a voice reveal already. Remember that one goofy community post I made a few days ago? Well, those audio things are actually my voice. I made those audio recordings because, well, I stutter a lot. So I recorded my voice here, then chopped it up into small but frequent voice recordings so we could minimize me stuttering. Yay. Other than that, I will show you how I make my storms like, Hurricane Isaac. Or literally any storm I animate, basically. So now I will show you how I animate my storm. Wait, who is this? What is this guy doing in my video? Why are you there? Answer me! You know what? Never mind. You don't need to answer. Get out of here, please. Thank you. First, let's talk about this one thing that makes the entire animating process very easy. Elements. These elements here are the reason why I'm able to make, my hypothetical hurricane seasons, and that Austin, Texas tornado as well. Elements are basically things that you add in, your Alight Motion videos, and you can do whatever you want to them. To demonstrate the power of elements, I typed Minecraft using the old Roblox logo thing. Yes. And those elements could be used in those projects like this 2024 West Pacific thingy here. Oh, and yes, those things could be animated. Animation demonstration. So the first thing I do is go to elements and put shaders into the whole thing, yeah. And then I get this time thing because apparently every single hurricane animation needs one, apparently. So I do that, make it a little smaller and put it in a corner. Oh, and yes, this video here already has a few storms animated already. Like this typhoon that decided to strike North Korea after stalling over eastern China for a while. But I'm gonna disclose how I do that pretty soon, so please wait. So now to make my hurricane animations, or in this case, typhoons, I start by scrolling through my elements, and then finding those icons that have the L and D imprinted on them. In this case, of course, it is the low pressure area and tropical depression icon. And then I turn down the opacity of the tropical depression icon until it's 0. Next, I shrink the low pressure area icon and then move them around. Once I find a good place for the low pressure area, I start animating it through this. It's hard to explain this segment, but basically I move those icons around pretty slowly, but frequently. Then, a few intervals later, I make this transition between the low pressure area and the tropical depression icons, which is literally just changing the opacity between them. Then I do literally the same thing I did with the low pressure icon. Animate it like that. Then finally, of course, after animating it, I change to another icon. This time, it's the tropical storm icon. It is called Sontin because of this naming system. After Maria is used, the name Sontin is used in the next tropical storm. So I do that. And then, of course, since I want it to be a pretty strong typhoon, I got the category 3 icon. And then, of course, I did some stuff to it. And then I get this category 5 icon because, well, I plan to animate this storm when I show you how I make my storms. So I had to make it a category 5 so you can see the whole procedure. Oh, and in every single hypothetical typhoon season, the name Sontin was used as this weak tropical storm. So anyway, other than that, before I start animating the storm, I do some stuff to this icon. Because the colors of elements could actually be animated. So yes, I do that. So I animate the color changes like that. Then, after I reach a certain point in animating the colors, I animate the text so that it can actually represent the storm either intensifying or weakening. Now enjoy this sped up animation clip. So now, after I do all that, I now actually start animating this icon. So now enjoy this sped up clip of me animating this storm. Now that I finished animating this icon, we could basically move on to this next icon. The category 3 icon, or basically, the major storm icon. I basically sped up this segment and the animating of the category 5 icon because this is pretty much the same. Animating the changing of colors, animating the icon, and that's basically it. Nothing else. So please wait till Typhoon Sontin gets a little closer to the Philippines. Thank you. Alright, so now that Typhoon Sontin has basically came closer to the Philippines, we're gonna do something a little different for this segment. I zoomed in because I want to, slowly animate this typhoon all the way till it makes landfall in the Philippines. Temporarily, I also lowered the opacity of the icon. That way, when the typhoon makes landfall, it will be easier to pinpoint where it made landfall. So after a while, with a couple editing, I now got my desired landfall intensity, and I also pinpointed when the typhoon makes landfall. So what I did now was get my landfall marker, put it right in the center of my icon, and then I took a little detour to Google Maps. No, I don't want satellite right now. Thank you. So now with Google Maps, I try to pinpoint the region where the typhoon makes landfall. It could be a city, county, or a province. In this case, Saunton made landfall in a very rural area with barely any city development, so I just pinpoint the province where Saunton made landfall, and then I edited my landfall marker so that it says where the typhoon makes landfall, in this case, the province of Quezon in the Philippines. And then I also type down at what intensity the typhoon makes landfall. In this case, 145 miles per hour, 930 millibars. So then I now animate the weakening of Sontin after it made landfall. And from how I animate the intensifying of individual storms like Sontin, which is very self-explanatory considering that animating the weakening of individual storms is basically the reverse of animating the intensifying of individual storms. A few inexcusable and stupid procrastinations later, I finally almost finished animating Sontin. I basically did the steps reverse, like from tropical storm, it goes from tropical depression. Then, once I finish animating the tropical depression icon, I start animating the remnant low icon. Of course, I just moved the remnant low icon around and stuff. And then after I finish animating the remnant low icon, I basically animate its opacity so that I can make it fade to represent Sontin dissipating. After that, I group every single icon of Sontin together. I basically duplicate that group again, and then I give it the Gauge blur effect. That way, the icon can glow even more. And then, since it crossed the Philippine Area of Responsibility border, I get the next name from the Philippine naming list. I skipped Dindo because, well, I am going to be animating another storm that will enter the Philippine Area of Responsibility border earlier than Sontin. So instead of Dindo, I am using Enteng. And then I animate the name tag so that it stays at the top left of the actual name. I skipped this part because this is literally just animating a storm icon, but instead of animating a storm icon, you're just animating a name tag basically. And now the next thing I do is add the damage and death pop-ups. This basically appears every time after a storm makes landfall. The storm destroys something or kills someone. So yeah, now I'm just gonna do that. Enjoy another sped up clip of me animating. So now, after I've done all that, I group all those damage and death pop-ups and then put them into one group. And now, this is something that I've been starting to do recently. Making the track lines. So I start by adding some small, translucent circles, and then I put them in the center of the icon. I do this once every 6 hours on my timeline. And then, when the icon switches, I change the color of the circle to match with the icon. And then from here, it basically gets very self-explanatory. But if you still don't get it, here is a sped up clip of me basically just copying and pasting circles. So now that I finished copying and pasting circles, what I do next is draw lines to make the track line. This is what those circles are for, to help guide me in making those track lines. I don't know what else to say here other than it's probably self-explanatory too, but if you still don't get it, I'm going to speed up this clip as well. Finally, I add this landfall marker right here, and then I change its color depending on what intensity it makes landfall. In this case, Sontin made landfall as a category 4, so it has to be red. And then I put this landfall marker on where the storm makes landfall. And then of course, since glow makes everything look cooler, I do basically the same thing I do to the icons. Duplicate it, and then give it the Gauge 1 blur effect so it can glow. Finally, again, I do some stuff to the track line, like changing its opacity and stuff. By that, I just animate the changing of opacity. And then I make the duration of this track line to be very long. Basically, I make the track line last until the very end of the video. And now, I'm pretty much done for Typhoon Sontin. And now to answer the question onto why there are pre-made storms already. What I do is delete the shaders and the timeline, and then I export the video, and then I'll have to watch a really stupid and cringe mobile game ad I have to blur or else I'll get copyrighted. And then I'll have to wait approximately twice the length of Geometry Dash 2.2 and GTA 6 coming out combined, just so this thing could export. Then finally, once it's done exporting, I delete this 2024 West Pacific project of mine. Then I make a new project and then name it basically the same thing as the deleted project. And then I get my video that contains all the storms I've animated in this project so far, and then I scroll through my elements until I get my shaders. Aha, there it is. Yay. And then I get my very mandatory timeline because every single hypothetical hurricane and typhoon stuff needs one apparently, and then put it in the bottom left quadrant where every single timeline should reside in. And now I can animate more storms until my editor decides to lag again. So yeah, here's the final results. And there you have it. That's how I make my storms. Before I go, there are a few things I want to say. First of all, even if I retire my hurricane icons, the process on how I animate my storms are still going to be the same because it is just changing the colors over and over again. So your future comments on that aged well on this video already aged well. Secondly, I forgot to say, I explained how I animate my storms the best I can, and I suck at explaining stuff, actually. So, sorry if you don't understand this. And finally, regarding the 2025 hypothetical Atlantic and Pacific hurricane season, here is version 2 of the predictions of the 2025 hypothetical hurricane season. Almost everyone is expecting a below-average hurricane season, especially because of the building of a moderate El Nino and because of an abnormal cooling in the eastern MDR during this time in this hypothetical universe. Meanwhile, in the eastern Pacific, an above-average hurricane season is expected, mainly because of the El Nino and the above-average sea surface temperatures. For a quick disclaimer, I do not think of myself as a swag meteorologist, and I don't really know much about the favorable and unfavorable conditions of hurricane development. I am just someone who makes hypothetical storm stuff for fun, and this is just an indirect teaser of what I am planning for my hypothetical hurricane seasons. there is already an actual prediction for the actual 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. And there you have it. You now know how I animate my storms, and it is actually pretty easy unless you procrastinate a lot like me. So yeah, I don't know what else to say anymore, so bye-bye!
Oh yeah, Mr. Crab.